In a quiet corner of the world, trees older than empires breathe slowly in the fog. They rise from the damp earth of Northern California, their red bark soft as wool, their crowns dissolving into a ceiling of mist 300 feet above the forest floor. These are the coast redwoods, Sequoia sempervirens, the tallest living things on Earth. And tonight, as you settle into stillness, we will wander together beneath them, through cathedrals of green silence, into the slow, patient world of the ancient giants of the mist. Welcome to Let's Learn While You Sleep. Tonight, we journey to a narrow strip of coastline where the Pacific Ocean meets the edge of a continent, and where some of the oldest, tallest beings on our planet quietly continue their long lives. The coast redwoods have stood here for over 20 million years, in one form or another, long before humans ever walked these shores. Individual trees alive today were already centuries old when the Roman Empire fell, and some may have been seedlings when the great libraries of Alexandria still burned with lamplight. As you rest, let your thoughts slow to the rhythm of these forests, a rhythm measured not in hours or days, but in centuries. Let the fog settle around your shoulders. Let the deep green hush gather you in. We will learn together about how these giants drink from clouds, how they survive fire and flood, and how they shelter entire worlds in the hidden gardens of their crowns. Breathe slowly, we begin. Let us begin with the tree itself. The coast redwood, Sequoia sempervirens, is the tallest species of tree known to science. The current record holder, a tree named Hyperion, discovered in 2006 in Redwood National Park, measures approximately 115.9 meters tall, roughly 380 feet. To imagine that height, picture a 35-story building made entirely of living wood, its top floors hidden inside a ceiling of clouds. And yet, the trunk at its base is only a fraction of what you might expect. Coast redwoods are not the widest trees on Earth. That honor belongs to their cousin, the giant sequoia of the Sierra Nevada. Coast redwoods are instead the tall, slender spires of the tree world, growing upward with a quiet, relentless patience. Their bark, a rich cinnamon red, can reach nearly a foot in thickness on the oldest trees, so soft and fibrous that you can press your palm against it and feel it give slightly, like the pelt of some enormous, slow-breathing animal. This bark is one of the secrets of their longevity. It contains no flammable resins, and it is rich in a compound called tannin, which makes it resistant to insects, fungi, and even to fire. When flames sweep through a redwood grove, as they have for millions of years, the thick bark chars on the outside, but insulates the living tissue within. The tree survives. It has survived, in some cases, for more than 2,000 years. Think of that for a moment. A single organism, rooted in one place, experiencing 20 centuries of weather, of wildfire, of drought, of wind, of the rise and fall of civilizations far beyond its valley. These trees do not travel. They do not hurry. They simply stand and keep standing, adding each year a thin new ring of wood just beneath their bark, a slow, silent accumulation of time made visible. Consider for a moment the problem of being tall. For a tree, height is both a triumph and a burden. The taller a tree grows, the farther it must lift water from its roots to its highest needles, against gravity, along narrow tubes of xylem no wider than a human hair. Scientists once wondered whether there might be a ceiling to this process, a maximum height at which the physics of water transport simply breaks down. Current evidence suggests that for coast redwoods, the theoretical limit lies somewhere between 122 and 130 meters, roughly 400 to 425 feet. The tallest redwoods alive today are already pressing gently against that boundary. And so the tree has developed a remarkable solution, one discovered by researchers only in the last few decades. It drinks, in part, from the sky. Along the Pacific coast of Northern California and Southern Oregon, cool ocean air meets warmer land and condenses into thick summer fog. This fog drifts inland, settling among the redwood crowns, where the tree's flat needles comb moisture directly from the mist. Studies published in the early 2000s, led by ecologist Todd Dawson and colleagues, estimate that fog can supply as much as 30 to 40% of a coast redwood's water intake during the dry summer months. Water condenses on the needles, drips down the bark, and soaks into the forest floor, feeding not only the tree itself, but every moss, fern and fungus around its base. The redwood has, in a sense, learned to bypass the long climb upward by meeting the water halfway, gathering it from the air, directly into its canopy. And so, on a fog-drenched morning, when you stand beneath these trees and feel a gentle patter of droplets from above, you are witnessing an ancient partnership between tree and ocean. A slow, silent exchange that has kept these forests alive through summer after summer for millions of years. Now let us descend slowly to the roots. If you were to expect the greatest tree on earth to have the deepest roots, you would be mistaken. Coast redwood roots rarely reach more than 3 or 4 meters into the soil, perhaps 10 to 13 feet. Instead of plunging downward, they spread outward, sometimes radiating 100 feet or more in every direction from the base of the tree. And here lies another of the redwood's quiet wonders. The roots of neighboring redwoods intertwine beneath the forest floor, fusing together in places where they touch. This means that a stand of redwoods is often not a collection of separate individuals at all, but a single, interconnected network, a living lattice of shared support. When wind howls in from the Pacific, no single tree bears the force alone. The linked roots distribute the strain across dozens, even hundreds of trees, allowing the grove to stand together against storms that would topple any one of them in isolation. Researchers have also found that nutrients and water can pass between connected trees through these root fusions, and possibly through networks of soil fungi called mycorrhizae, which thread through the earth in fine white filaments and form partnerships with nearly every plant in the forest. Scientists believe that in such networks, older, larger trees may share resources with younger or struggling neighbors, though the exact dynamics are still being studied. What we do know is that a redwood grove behaves, in many ways, as something more than the sum of its trees. It is a community, rooted in cooperation, sustained by exchange. When one tree falls, its root system often continues to live for years afterward, supported by the trees around it. And from its decaying stump, new shoots may rise. Clones of the original, genetically identical, continuing a life that began perhaps 1,000 years earlier. In this way, a redwood never entirely dies. It simply passes, quietly, into the next generation of itself. Let us climb now, in imagination, to the place few humans have ever reached. The crown of an ancient redwood, more than 300 feet above the ground. For most of human history, we had no idea what was up there. The canopies of the tallest redwoods were, quite literally, unexplored territory. It was not until the late 1980s and the 1990s that a small group of scientists, notably the botanist Stephen Sillett and his colleagues, began to ascend into the redwood crowns using climbing techniques borrowed from arborists and mountaineers. What they found astonished them. The upper canopy of an ancient redwood is not a simple arrangement of branches. It is a world. Over the centuries, the tree's limbs fuse and reform, creating thick, horizontal platforms where layers of fallen needles, bark, and debris accumulate. In time, this material breaks down into soil, actual soil, sometimes more than a meter deep, held aloft hundreds of feet in the air. In that soil grow ferns, huckleberry bushes, and even small trees of other species, rooted not in the earth below, but in the body of the redwood itself. Whole gardens flourish up there, drinking from the fog. In these canopy soils, scientists have found salamanders that may live their entire lives without ever touching the ground, copepods and mites, and tiny invertebrates found nowhere else, and thick mats of lichens and mosses that slowly cycle nutrients back into the tree. A single old-growth redwood may host hundreds of species in its upper reaches, many still unnamed, many still unstudied. This is the hidden wilderness of the sky, an aerial ecosystem that evolved over thousands of years, sustained by fog and sunlight, almost invisible to the world below. When you look up through a redwood grove and see the branches vanishing into green haze, know that somewhere in that darkness, salamanders are breathing softly through their skin, and ferns are unfurling in soil that has never known the ground. Let us turn our attention now to the mist itself, that soft silver veil that drifts among the redwoods almost every morning, blurring the edges of the world. This fog is not mere atmosphere. For the coast redwood, it is life. Along the narrow strip of California and southern Oregon where these trees grow, the summers are dry, the rains largely withheld for months at a time. And yet the redwoods drink. They drink from the air. Scientists have found that a significant portion of the water coast redwoods used during the dry season comes not from the soil, but from fog condensing directly on their needles. The countless tiny needles of the upper canopy act as combs, catching droplets from the passing clouds. Some of this water runs down the bark, soaks into the soil at the tree's base, and is taken up again by the roots. But some is absorbed directly through the surface of the leaves themselves. A quiet, almost intimate exchange between a tree and a cloud. Consider what this means. The tallest trees on Earth are, in part, sustained by fog drifting in from the Pacific Ocean. Fog born of cold currents meeting warmer air. Fog that has travelled silently across the water to settle, at last, among branches older than empires. The redwoods have shaped themselves around this gift. Their range corresponds almost precisely to the summer fog belt of the Pacific coast. Move inland, beyond the reach of that moist breath, and the giants simply stop. They cannot follow. The fog is their climate, their atmosphere, their invisible companion. And on still mornings, when the sun begins to rise behind the ridges, the forest seems to exhale. Mist curls upward through the branches in long, slow ribbons. Every surface glitters. Every sound is softened. It is as though the forest were breathing, drawing the cloud into itself, releasing it again, over and over, across centuries. Somewhere in that soft, suspended silence, the trees continue their patient drinking, quietly gathering the sky into their bodies, one droplet at a time. Consider now the bark. Press your hand in imagination against the side of an ancient redwood. What you feel is unlike any other tree. The bark is soft, fibrous, deeply furrowed, almost spongy where your fingers sink in. In the oldest giants, this bark can be a foot thick, sometimes more. And this thickness is no accident. It is armor, patiently evolved over tens of millions of years against one of the forest's most ancient visitors, fire. Fire has moved through the redwood forests for as long as the redwoods have stood there. Lightning strikes on distant ridges, dry lightning in late summer, the slow accumulation of fallen needles and branches. All of it makes fire inevitable. But rather than flee, the redwoods have learned to endure. Their thick, fibrous bark contains almost no flammable resin. When flames reach it, the bark smolders rather than ignites, insulating the living wood within. The tree may be scorched, blackened, even hollowed, yet it survives. Walk through an old-growth grove, and you will see the evidence. Great cavities at the base of the largest trees, called goose pens or fire caves, carved out by centuries of passing flames. You could step inside one and look up, and above you would be hundreds of feet of living, green, thriving tree. The fire took the heartwood, but spared the life. In fact, fire is more than tolerated. It is, in its own quiet way, welcomed. Fire clears the undergrowth, returns nutrients to the soil, opens gaps in the canopy where young redwoods can reach toward the light. Seedlings often establish themselves most successfully in the bare mineral soil left behind after a burn. A forest that seems, to our brief human eyes, catastrophically wounded, is in truth simply turning another page in a very long book. And so the redwoods stand, ringed by the scars of fires that burned before any human set foot in the Americas. Patient witnesses, wrapped in their soft red armor, endlessly rehearsing the art of survival across the slow centuries. Let us now think about time itself, as a redwood experiences it. The oldest verified coast redwoods are estimated to be roughly 2,000 years old, perhaps a little more. Their cousins, the giant sequoias of the Sierra Nevada, can live even longer, some exceeding 3,000 years. To stand beside one of these trees is to stand beside a living thing that was already ancient when cathedrals were being built, already rooted before the fall of Rome, already reaching for the light when the pyramids were still newly carved. Try to feel the shape of such a lifespan. A redwood seedling that sprouted around the year of Julius Caesar's death might still be alive today, its uppermost needles catching morning sun above a forest that has seen empires rise and dissolve, languages emerge and vanish, glaciers advance and retreat across distant continents. In that same span, some 80 human generations have lived and died. And the tree, largely unchanged in its slow unfolding, simply continued, adding another thin ring of wood each year, another whisper of growth, another season of fog drunk from the Pacific air. Within the trunk of such a tree is a written record. Each annual ring encodes something about the year in which it formed, whether rainfall was abundant or scarce, whether fires passed close by, whether the climate cooled or warmed. Scientists who study these rings, a field called dendrochronology, can read them like pages of a long, quiet chronicle. In the wood of a single ancient redwood, they can trace droughts that happened centuries before any written history of the region existed. The tree remembers what we have forgotten. And yet, for all this scale of time, the redwood does not seem to hurry toward any ending. It does not race against decay. It grows slowly, steadily, almost imperceptibly, gathering light and water and air, adding layer upon layer of wood. Somewhere in that long patience, perhaps, lies a kind of wisdom, the quiet knowledge that everything worth doing can be done very, very slowly. And now, let us widen our view once more and consider the forest not as a collection of individuals, but as a single, interconnected living system. Beneath the soil of a redwood grove runs a vast, almost invisible network. The roots of many trees, as we have mentioned, intertwine and fuse. But there is another layer to this connection, stranger and more subtle still. Threaded through the soil, wrapped around and sometimes even inside the root tips themselves, are the delicate filaments of fungi, structures called mycorrhizae. These fungal threads are extraordinarily fine, thinner than the finest human hair, and they extend outward in uncountable numbers, far beyond the reach of any root. In exchange for sugars produced by the tree through photosynthesis, the fungi deliver water and essential minerals gathered from distant corners of the soil. It is one of the oldest partnerships on Earth, stretching back hundreds of millions of years, long before forests in any modern sense existed. In the redwoods, this underground web is vast. Some researchers have proposed, based on evidence from other forest systems, that trees may share resources through these fungal connections, that a stronger tree, flush with sun, might pass sugars through the network to a shaded, struggling neighbor, or that warning signals about insect attacks might travel root to root. The full extent of this exchange in redwood forests specifically is still being studied, and not every detail is yet confirmed. But the broad picture of forests as cooperative communities, linked beneath the ground, is supported by a growing body of careful science. Imagine then what lies beneath your feet when you stand among the redwoods. Not simply dirt, not simply roots, but a quiet, humming web of life, exchanging nutrients, signals, perhaps something like conversation. Across distances no single tree could reach alone. Above, the giants rise in silent columns toward the fog. Below, they are all quietly touching. The forest is not many, it is one. And somewhere in the dim, patient dark of that underground world, life carries on its ancient, unhurried work. Consider the canopy, far above us, suspended between 200 and 300 feet in the quiet air. For most of human history, we had no idea what lived up there. It was only in the late 20th century, when researchers like Stephen Sillett began ascending these trees with climbing ropes, that the hidden world of the redwood crown was finally revealed. And what they found, drifting in that mist-soaked altitude, surprised even the most seasoned botanists. Entire gardens grow upon the branches of a single tree. Thick mats of soil, some as deep as a meter, have accumulated over centuries from fallen needles and decaying bark. In this suspended earth, ferns take root, huckleberry bushes fruit. Small hemlock trees, themselves many decades old, grow from the shoulders of their ancient hosts, rooted not in ground, but in sky. Salamanders have been discovered in these canopy gardens, wandering amphibians who may live their entire lives hundreds of feet above the forest floor, never once touching soil. Think of that for a moment. A creature born in the clouds, who knows only the damp moss, the patient dripping of fog, the slow breath of the tree beneath it. Entire ecosystems, vertical and secretive, unfolding in a space we did not even know existed. The redwood canopy also contains vast reservoirs of water. Epiphytic mosses, hanging like green curtains, can hold many times their weight in moisture, releasing it slowly during dry spells. Researchers have measured fog drip beneath large redwoods and found that a single tree can transfer hundreds of gallons of water from the air to the forest floor in a single day. The tree, in essence, becomes a kind of sky well, drawing moisture from invisible clouds and pouring it, drop by drop, into the soil around its roots. This is how the redwood feeds the forest, and how the forest, in turn, feeds the redwood, a slow, circular exchange carried out patiently, silently, across centuries. And somewhere, far above in the mist, a salamander shifts in its bed of moss, unaware that it lives upon a giant. Let us descend now, slowly, from the canopy to the forest floor, pausing along the way to consider the creatures who share this cathedral of wood and light. The redwood forest is not silent, though it often feels that way. Its sounds are simply older, softer, and more patient than our ears are trained to notice. Listen, in the imagination, for the low drumming of a pileated woodpecker, working its way up a fallen snag, its red crest catching a shaft of afternoon light. Listen for the soft chirp of the marbled murrelet, a small seabird who, remarkably, nests only on the broad, moss-covered branches of the oldest trees. For decades, scientists could not find its nesting sites, and the bird became one of the great ornithological mysteries of the Pacific coast. It was not until 1974 that the first nest was finally discovered, high in a Douglas fir, revealing that this small, ocean-dwelling creature depends, for its very survival, on the ancient forests that stand beside the sea. Listen for the slow rustle of the banana slug, that bright yellow invertebrate who glides across the damp floor, leaving silver trails on fallen needles. The banana slug is one of the forest's quiet heroes, consuming decaying plant matter and distributing nutrients through its passage. It can grow to nearly 10 inches long and lives for several years, which is remarkably long for a creature so soft and unhurried. Somewhere in the underbrush, a Pacific giant salamander waits beneath a damp log, one of the largest terrestrial salamanders in the world. It may live for decades, eating insects and smaller amphibians, moving only when it must. And high above, a spotted owl watches from a hollow, its dark eyes unblinking in the green twilight. These creatures are not separate from the redwoods. They are part of the same single organism, the same slow-breathing whole. Each one depends on the others, and the forest, as a living system, functions only because all of them remain. Pull one thread, and the pattern begins to unravel. Consider now the role of fire, which may seem strange to associate with a damp and misty forest, and yet fire has always been part of the redwood's long story. Coast redwoods have evolved remarkable fire resistance, and this is one of the reasons they have endured for so many millions of years. Their bark, as we spoke of earlier, can grow to nearly a foot in thickness, and it contains very little flammable resin compared to other conifers. Instead, it is fibrous, spongy, and rich in tannins, substances that resist combustion and protect the living tissue beneath. When a fire sweeps through a redwood grove, the flames may scorch the outer bark, blacken the lower trunk, even hollow out a great cavity at the base, but the tree itself frequently survives. Some of the oldest redwoods bear fire scars dating back many centuries, evidence of dozens of separate burns recorded in their growth rings, like chapters in a book of smoke and ash. Low-intensity fires, it turns out, are actually beneficial to the forest. They clear away competing vegetation, return nutrients to the soil, and create openings in the canopy where young redwoods can establish themselves. Redwood seeds, in fact, germinate most successfully on bare mineral soil exposed by fire, and the heat can trigger the release of seeds held in cones high above. For thousands of years, the indigenous peoples of this coast, including the Yurok, Tolowa, Wiyot, Pomo, and others, practiced careful cultural burning, using low fires to maintain healthy forests, encourage useful plants, and reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfire. When this practice was suppressed during the colonization of California in the 19th and 20th centuries, fuels accumulated, and the nature of fire in these forests began to change. Today, forest scientists and indigenous fire practitioners are working together once more, reintroducing the slow, tended flame to landscapes that have missed it for generations. The redwood, patient as always, simply waits. It has seen fire before. It has seen it many thousands of times, and it will see it again. Let us turn for a moment to a quieter chapter in the redwood's history, one that is sometimes difficult to sit with, and yet is essential to understand. When European settlers arrived on the coast of what is now Northern California in the 19th century, they encountered a landscape of almost unimaginable abundance. The old-growth coast redwood forest is believed to have covered approximately 2 million acres, stretching in a nearly unbroken ribbon from southern Oregon to the Big Sur coast. Within a single century, roughly 95% of that ancient forest was cut down. The wood, remarkably resistant to rot and insects, was used to build the cities of the American West. San Francisco, rebuilt after the earthquake and fires of 1906, rose in large part from redwood timber. Railroad ties, water tanks, wine barrels, homes, and furniture were crafted from trees that had stood for 2,000 years. A single ancient redwood, felled in a matter of days, represented a lifespan longer than the histories of most human nations. Today, only about 5% of the original old-growth coast redwood forest remains. This is a sobering figure, and yet it is not without hope. Beginning in the early 20th century, conservationists such as the founders of the Save the Redwoods League, established in 1918, began purchasing ancient groves and placing them into protection. Redwood National Park was established in 1968, and today a network of state and national parks safeguards most of what remains of the original forest. Elsewhere, second-growth redwood forests, planted or regrown after logging, are slowly maturing. In another 1,000 years, if we allow them, they may once again resemble the cathedrals that were lost. The trees themselves do not grieve, as far as we know. They simply continue, as they always have, doing the patient work of growing, breathing, and drinking the fog. And perhaps there is a lesson in that endurance, a reminder that what is ancient and slow is also deeply resilient, and that given time and care, even what has been broken can, very gradually, begin to heal. Let us consider now the remarkable partnership between redwoods and the creatures that live among them, a web of relationships so intricate that scientists are still uncovering its threads after more than a century of study. High in the canopy, sometimes 300 feet above the forest floor, entire ecosystems exist that most of us will never see. In the thick mats of soil that accumulate on the broad branches of ancient redwoods, ferns grow, huckleberries fruit, and small invertebrates live out their entire lives without ever descending to the ground below. Salamanders, it turns out, have been discovered in these canopy soils, generations of them hunting and breeding and dying in a miniature forest suspended in the sky. The wandering salamander, a small amphibian no longer than a finger, is believed by researchers to complete its full life cycle within these aerial gardens, moving only between branches, never touching the earth. Consider what that means for a moment. An animal that spends its entire existence in a world of bark and moss and filtered light, hundreds of feet above a forest floor, it will never know. And the redwoods themselves seem to welcome this company, for the decaying organic matter in the canopy eventually enriches the tree, feeding adventitious roots that sprout from the trunk high above the ground, drawing nutrients from the soil the branches themselves have made. Marbled murrelets, those small seabirds that fly inland at dawn to nest on the widest mossy limbs, raise their single chicks in the crowns of these giants, returning to the ocean each day to fish. Spotted owls glide silently between the massive trunks, hunting the forest's small mammals in the long shadows. Even the tree's litter, the fallen needles and shed branches, becomes home to countless beings: millipedes, beetles, fungi, bacteria, each playing a role in the slow cycling of nutrients. What emerges from this layered portrait is not a forest of trees, but a forest of relationships, a living architecture in which every resident, from the smallest bacterium to the oldest sequoia, contributes to the persistence of the whole. Let us now turn our attention to water, for water is the secret heart of the redwood forest, the element that makes these giants possible, and without which they could not exist. Coastal redwoods grow only in a narrow ribbon of land along the Pacific coast of Northern California and a small corner of southern Oregon, a strip perhaps 450 miles long and rarely more than 50 miles wide. Within this ribbon, a particular climate prevails: cool, wet winters and summers softened by the near-constant presence of fog rolling in from the cold ocean. It is this fog that sustains the redwoods through the dry summer months, when rainfall nearly ceases. Scientists have found that fog can supply, by some estimates, a substantial portion of the water a coastal redwood needs during the dry season, perhaps as much as a third in certain locations. The mechanism is elegant. As fog drifts through the canopy, tiny droplets collect on needles and branches, condensing and falling to the forest floor below in a phenomenon called fog drip. This moisture seeps into the soil, feeds the shallow but immensely wide root system, and is drawn upward through the trunk by the slow, patient physics of transpiration. Yet the trees do more than passively collect water. Research suggests that redwoods can absorb fog moisture directly through their needles, a process that bypasses the long journey up from the roots and allows the uppermost branches, hundreds of feet above the ground, to hydrate themselves from the air itself. Consider the beauty of that exchange: a tree drinking from the sky, an ocean evaporating, traveling on cool currents inland, condensing among needles, and returning, drop by drop, to the soil and the rivers, and eventually to the sea once more. The redwood forest is, in this sense, a participant in the planet's water cycle, at a scale we are only beginning to appreciate. And as climate patterns shift, as fog becomes less frequent along certain stretches of coast, scientists are watching closely, aware that the fate of these ancient trees may depend on that slow breath of moisture from the sea. So, as the fog settles again around the ancient ones, let your thoughts drift downward through the layers we have wandered tonight. The hidden gardens of the canopy, the soft red bark, the quiet cathedrals of light, the interwoven roots sleeping beneath the earth. The redwoods do not measure time as we do. They do not hurry. They simply stand and breathe and gather the mist, century after century, in a patience so deep it borders on the eternal. Let their rhythm settle into yours. Let your breath slow, like the slow rise of sap in an ancient trunk. Let the weight of the day dissolve into the green hush of the grove. Somewhere, out along the Pacific coast tonight, a redwood that was already old when your grandparents' grandparents were born is quietly drinking from the fog, unaware of you, and yet sheltering, in its own vast way, the same world you belong to. Rest now, beneath its watch. If tonight's journey carried you gently toward rest, know there are many more quiet worlds waiting for us to explore together. Thank you for spending your night with Let's Learn While You Sleep. Subscribe and come back tomorrow night. We'll be here. Sleep well.